Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Hyperlight Up. We're here today with a very special stream, and before I say anything, hello to everyone in the chat as well. Hey Orfea, hey everyone else watching and being too shy to say something. So today we have a very special stream because instead of playing a game, we're gonna interview the developers of Shoe, which I hope I'm saying right because people from Greece can't really say the shoe sound, so it's Shoe. I don't know how to really say it. We're going to ask the developers themselves. So we have Coatsink with us. We have Jonathan Wilson from the UK, who will be talking to us about the game, and we're going to ask him a few questions. And at any given time, feel free to ask something in the chat, and we'll forward the question to the developer. Depends what kind of question, of course, it is, because, don't ask silly stuff. No, ask silly stuff as well. I'm pretty sure they're going to love it. So I'm going to call Jonathan, and we can get to it. Let me just change the scene. And oh, whoa, wrong one. Okay, there we go. Okay,
Yeah.
Jonathan,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool, cool. Waiting for your camera. We're seeing an advertisement for now.
What, on my camera? My camera should come on now. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So, oh, let me start the video as well from the. In the meantime, you can see on the bottom right we have the playthrough from when I played Sue last Saturday. You can see the game there a little bit, get an idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel a bit more comfortable of what we're talking about while we're talking about it.
Yeah, like in reference to it, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, Jonathan. By the way,
Yeah,
your name is Jonathan or Jonathan?
it's Thon, so it's O-N instead of E-N.
Oh, okay, that's the first time I heard that. That's fancy. Nice.
Yeah, it's the amount of people that struggle to spell it right is quite amazing. Because
I
obviously
can
it's not the
imagine.
conventional spelling.
So, thank you for joining us. See, like already we started with somebody saying, "Nice shirt, by the way, John."
Yeah.
Okay, so Ania does is part of the HLU team, by the way, from Hyper Light Up, and he actually knows the game as well, and he probably
Okay,
saw your
that's
T-shirt right away.
good.
So, thank you for joining us,
No.
and we love having indie devs over on our stream. We've done like a couple more while we were in IGN. We've done a couple more where we started Hyper Light Up. And we really like talking to the indie devs themselves because we talk about indie games a lot, and it's
Yeah.
never the same as actually talking to the indie dev and asking something. Like you see something in the game, and you think there's a deeper meaning, but you never truly understand it.
Yeah.
So I might be just bullcropping right now because some games are very simple, but I feel
Yeah.
like Sue has a lot to say because it's way too pretty to be that simple.
There's a lot of little intricate bits like just scattered throughout the game that you'll only pick up on like by playing it over and over again, or like you see you're asking the right questions at the right time. So
Yeah. So, for the people that have seen the game and are asking about John's T-shirt, can I call you John? Is that easier?
yes,
Okay.
yes, that's a lot
Asking
easier.
about
That's
John's
fine.
T-shirt, that's a big bad thingy that was chasing me when I was playing the game and killing me all the time.
Yeah,
So, yeah, let's get started. Um, I got my first question, which is like a pretty standard.
yeah.
A few things about the studio and how you actually started. Like, do you have a funny story about how you guys started it, and what's your role in it?
So the studio itself was founded back in like 2009, where it started with like doing mobile games. I actually come into the fold a lot later on. I only joined the company a year ago in 2015.
Okay.
But the story of actually getting there was quite weird because obviously going through university and stuff like that, you're always looking to get into game dev. And I met Tom, which was the CEO of the company, at various events like while I was at university, while I was doing freelance and stuff. And it was just like keeping that rapport up with him all the time, and just like I think it was our kind of connection for games, anime, and in particular The Witcher. And it
Okay.
sounds really weird, like just to say like the stuff like we just talk like kind of random crap about The Witcher or anything like that. And then it's got to the point where I went to the office a few times as well. So I saw Shu a long, long time ago. So I don't know if you've seen the original concept trailer for the game, which
I'm
was
not
done in like
sure. Well,
which it,
what
you can
that about?
find it on YouTube, and it's like kind of it's very basic. It's kind of like a prototype trailer, which was kind of done just before Coatsink started working on it. And I saw the game shortly after that. So it was, the funny
Okay.
story for me is to see a game that I was like, oh, I'll buy this and have potential in it. Flip it on its head now to where we are, and I've worked on it and helped release it. It's like kind of spinning that round is quite strange as well.
So you went from talking about Witcher, like a
Yeah,
AAA game, with somebody that works in the video games industry, and you're
yeah.
like, "Oh, now I'm working on that game." Like,
Yeah, I think it's just like it's a shared interest, and it's kind of like coming down to being game development. If you're going to meet people and like you're doing network, and it's kind of like if you can demonstrate your skill or you can show that sense of passion, like
yeah.
hopefully they might see that and see something in you. But for me with Shu, it was kind of like I fell in love with the game initially, but so to actually finally get to work on it was really cool.
Okay. So basically, your story is that it escalated out of nowhere that you started working on this game. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like I knew the company like about a year in advance before joining them, like just through uni and various events, and then to be invited into the office kind of one day, and then be given, and then going to an industry event and having a message the following day to the point where I was kind of like, oh. when can I start? And I didn't expect to wake up to that message. So that was quite
Yeah.
a surprise. I had to kind of cut down my notice at my current job that I had, and I was kind of like, how quickly can I really start? So I didn't have a printer at the time, so I remember having to get it printed out on the way to work and actually hand it in. So that was quite intense.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, what is it that you do exactly in the company?
So at the company I work as a game slash like level designer.
Okay.
When I first started out on Shoe, it
So
was
you're the one
primarily
to blame, right?
um,
For everything.
partially, but you'll also enjoy it when you string everything together and you get it right.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I started at the company, it was kind of all about getting a feel for the game and kind of establishing like the level of flow we had in it. And obviously, like the game has obviously changed a lot. You've played it a bit yourself, so you've
Yeah.
seen is the storm which changes the tension and the pace. So it was all about how can we incorporate this storm to always be kind of tense and scary each time you encounter it throughout the game. Because before we had it where it was quite formulaic, and it was like every third level you would encounter the storm, so you knew when it was coming. There was no surprise there. And then we kind of changed it to be more kind of random, appear at different intervals throughout the game instead of it always appearing at the same point every world, which kind of keeps you on your toes. And you'll also notice the length of the storm chase also change. And sometimes it will just flash. There'll be no build up, it'll just appear as well to kind of keep you on your toes.
Okay. So, I saw quite a few things. We can get back to those like a bit
Yeah.
later. But first of all, I want to ask, why a platformer game? Why would you make a platformer game, and why did you actually go with that specific genre?
So I suppose a number of things could have influenced this. Obviously, you mentioned the art style before, and obviously there's a lot behind that. The hand-drawn characters, obviously, they were never going to work in a full 3D environment for one, and like the characters we grew very attached to. And it was also the fact that 2D platformers are something we all have a passion for, like to a degree in the office. We all played them growing up. We all remember like playing Sonic on like the Sega Mega Drive. Then you saw a few years ago, you saw a resurgence when we got like
Yeah.
Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends, and to a lot of extent more recently like Ori and things. So we
Like
knew there
Super
was
Meat
some,
Boy and whatnot, actually,
yeah,
you know.
exactly. So we knew there was a market out there, and people still liked that kind of old school platformer like aesthetic and the gameplay, which it kind of helped us influence it, and it made us realize when we were creating the game, despite it can be hard in places, it's like once you understand the controls, just like any old school platformer, like it feels really good, and it gets to a point where you understand it and you feel like you are discovering it as you play through the game.
Yeah. So basically, platformers, like for me at least, if I would like
Yeah.
to add to that, is like the kind of game that everyone can go to. You
Yeah,
know.
so it's kind of easy, I suppose, like easy to learn, hard to master in a way.
Yeah.
It's like
Exactly.
that's one thing that comes out of it. Because the more you play a level in Shoe, like especially if you're doing a time trial, is you'll notice your time starts to slowly creep down,
Yeah.
and it's just because you're getting more used to timing your jumps and everything like that. So you learn the layout, you learn the abilities you have at your disposal, and it just makes you get into the flow of the game.
Yeah. So basically, what I would like to say, like specifically for Shu, is that
Yeah,
how do you pronounce the name of the game, by the way?
Shoe. Yeah,
Shu.
so how you're
Okay,
pronouncing
okay, okay.
it.
So I said at the start of the stream, Greek people don't really do the Shu sound well, so
Yeah.
we are made fun of for that, and you know with good reason as well. We're not good at it. But yeah, anyway, what I wanted to say for it is that spoiler alert a little bit for the review that I'm gonna write, but
Right.
what I loved in the game is that as a platformer, it actually challenges you to learn different moves every time,
Yeah.
and it keeps you interested in the game.
Hmm.
Unlike many other platformers, because most platformers go from like not having anything to having like four jumps in a row or something like that.
Yeah, so it's like having too much, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
you're right. It's all about like designing a layout that can introduce things. And I mean, in the obviously the full game, you'll realize, and you mentioned about swapping out abilities. It's kind of like every new world introduces two
Yeah,
new mechanics to the game, so it keeps it fresh, and it's two new mechanics for you to learn. But it's also like two new mechanics to learn on top of Shu's basic mechanics. So
yeah,
you always got
exactly.
the simple run, jump, and glide, which you know are your safety net. But then it's how can you mix them with a wall jump, with a double jump, and other things as well throughout the game.
So basically, I realized how important that was when I
Yeah,
got the double jump in one of the levels. And then
yeah,
on the next level, I was still trying to double jump. I'm like, oh, see how used I am to the kind of
yeah.
mechanics of
And
platformers?
and that was just in like you had that double jump ability for what, two levels, and like it became instinctive to you
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. It became like, oh, I can do that. But then
Yeah.
it really wasn't there anymore. And
No.
sometimes I would forget like my main character's ability and be like, okay, I actually have that. I still remember that.
I can still jump normally.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, level design, I mean, and everything blends in so nicely in the game.
Yeah.
I really like that part of it. So moving on to the next question. Let's do the art kind of question. The art
Yeah.
is really, really, really nice. I mean, it's one of
Yes.
those games that I always say it when I'm streaming indie games.
Mm.
When you go on Steam and you see like the first picture with the logo and everything, it's
Yeah.
your first impression.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't have a screenshot of the game or something,
Yeah.
it counts for so much. People are not gonna click on it if it's not pretty. And Sue,
No.
from the first impression to the very end of it, like I haven't
Hmm.
finished the game yet. I feel bad saying that, but I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah.
It just feels so nice. Like it just looks so nice, and
Mm.
it does actually, it doesn't just look nice. It actually plays nice as well with all the pretty graphics around it.
Yeah.
Because you see like all these platformers that have like cluster graphics and you don't know what's going on. But Sue does that
Yeah.
like pretty nicely. So what were your inspirations and what got you to the point of like making it so pretty?
So it kind of like it blends in from a lot of things. So obviously, when you're going through and you're looking at different art styles, it's like you'll take inspiration from games naturally because that's obviously it's the medium we're developing in. But to kind of like step out of that and kind of make it more unique, where you go for the more kind of abstract, hand painted and hand drawn characters. We look to like anime. We look to a kind of any interpretation we can see, and also like in terms of actual artists. So a lot of the artists in the studio took inspiration from like kind of Gaudi and Cubism as well. And then when you
Yeah.
bring all that together, you have quite a varied art style. And you'll notice as you play through the game, like each world kind of has its own unique style, and it'll have a kind of basically we give each world a kind of predominant color and build a color palette around that to kind of build out each level to make them each more bespoke and stand out.
Okay, so basically the level that we're seeing right now, for example, is
Yeah,
more
it's
of like
a
earthly.
coastal.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a coastal environment, and then it kind of just blending that together with like normal forms you would expect to encounter in a coast environment. Obviously, with that stylized kind of more cell shaded stroke.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, did it take you like because we keep hearing stories of like indie development where they
Yeah.
take like 2 to 3 years actually, like some companies, to
Yeah.
get
So
to a certain style. How long did it take you, and what was your decision like when it
So
came to that?
throughout development, the game went through like multiple iterations, and obviously, if you followed like kind of the development history of the game at all, you'll kind of know last year we decided to like delay the game, and like that kind of was when we looked at the art style and we kind of decided to overhaul it, and that was because we had this world which was the last world we built for the game, and we kind of looked at it and said this is the quality that we want, and we want that throughout every world, and obviously all the other worlds have been done while we were still learning to an extent. So
Yeah.
the delay allowed us to bring everything up to that quality. And that was also when we decided we wanted a predominant color in every world. We wanted every world to have a unique color palette. And then we really wanted to add that sense of depth you see throughout the game. So it was all about having your play space area, but also layering it up to help the characters really feel like part of the world. So you'll see all the background elements and then even foreground elements as well to really set them apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things as well. Whereas where the characters actually look very different from what you see like in the background.
Yeah.
Like all the even the monster that is chasing you blends in so
Yeah.
nicely, like with everything, like it's just eating everything in a way,
Yeah. Just
consuming everything.
yeah, consumes the world.
Yeah, that it's pretty cool. I mean, it's like a very pretty game where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
everything's so beautiful and handsome and like
And
pretty,
out of
and you're
nowhere.
like, oh, everything's so peaceful, and then just that's like this huge thing with like creepy arms like creeping
Yeah.
out of nowhere. That was very cool. So yeah, I mean, it's really nice. To the thing that I said at the start,
Mm.
indie games and deeper meanings. Do you relate to that with your game? And is there a message that you're trying to get across with the game?
To an extent, yeah. Like we definitely like you said, the storm. It's that sense of like the end of the world, this urgency, like impending doom almost. So that's kind of like that deeper meaning that kind of comes from behind that. But then there's also the peril of escaping it and dealing with matters and like things with your friends. So you'll notice every time you collect these villagers and you've got them following you, they actually form a chain behind you and they're holding hands. So it's kind of like a representation of their friendship and like the closeness. And there's also the fact that Shu alone can't do this, so he needs the
Yeah.
help of his friends, and kind of that's the journey they go on to kind of save the world, basically save their world.
Okay, so that basically like the companionship kind of like thing happening
Yeah,
there.
it's companionships and just like that sense of peril, like from this like relentless force kind of pursuing you as well.
Okay. So, regarding development now, before
Hmm.
we move on to the marketing side of things, because
Yeah,
people love to hear about marketing when it comes to indie games, I kind of don't like talking about it that much because, it tends to get too much focus sometimes.
yeah,
Whereas, the focus should be on the actual development. But,
yeah.
we have to talk about it, I guess.
You've got to cover all bases.
Yeah. So, regarding development, what would you say was your biggest pain when it came to development? Like your biggest difficulty, if you want to say it like that.
The biggest pain probably come like we encountered during development, especially early on, was probably resources. Because obviously the company, when during development of this, was quite small at the time, and obviously during like the last like year and a half of development on Shoe, the company grew, which meant the resources weren't as restrictive, and we got that consistent team. And I can't really stress enough how much having
So,
a
how many
consistent
people
team.
were you?
So initially, like the scale of development could fluctuate from anywhere from like 4 to 6 people.
Okay.
But the highest the team probably's ever gotten Shoe maybe be like 8 to 10. And that was kind of split across different disciplines as well at different points throughout the project. But once we got those resources for a consistent amount of time, that's when we had enough time to dedicate to getting all the 3D assets piped out, getting all the animations like set up. And I mean, some of the destruction animation, you can tell that it's a lot of individual parts,
Yeah.
and they've all been hand animated as well, like that destruction getting pulled away into the storm, which takes a lot of time. And initially, we didn't really have an animator to do that. So
Oh
once we
wow.
got that,
Okay.
that was like that added. We saw how much it added to the game, and we're like, right, that's one point to go on. The other pains probably come from like cross-platform development. So we knew this game was going to come to PS4, PC, and Vita.
Okay.
And obviously, they all have kind of different specs. And the more obviously, at least with PS4, we know what we're targeting. We know exactly what's in the box. We know what we can run with. PC, to an extent, you can kind of just say the PS4 version would work, but there's so much hardware variation in the PC market that
Yeah.
you can't guarantee every graphics chip, every sound driver,
You
everything is going
see
to be
it.
the
Yeah, you
same.
see it on Steam, like in the development news of its company. They actually put out like minor fixes. Oh, we made it available for you people now. We
Yeah,
made it
exactly.
available for the people that are using this now.
Yeah,
It's
I
it's
mean,
always a problem.
we had it. Like we had it when we launched the Steam version. Like we for the most part like thought it would have been a lot worse than what it was, but we did have very like specific cases, and it was just down to stuff that we couldn't really account for in the office, just because it would be a specific monitor, a specific driver they were running that we don't have. Like we can't
Yeah.
have every piece of hardware there. And then in terms of the Vita, obviously the Vita is it's a great bit of kit if you do everything right, but you can't just take the PS4 or PC version and put it on there. So there was a lot of optimization, a lot of efficiency, and a lot of stuff like aspects that kind of had to be reworked because we wanted our like to basically provide a similar experience across all three platforms.
Okay. So, one of my colleagues is saying like something about the price on indie games and whatnot. We're gonna talk about that in the
Yeah.
marketing section. I'd love to hear your opinion on that actually, even if it's
Mhm.
like not shoe related or anything.
Yeah.
So, so you'd say like basically the amount of resources was your main difficulty.
The just general optimization of the project,
Okay.
was like going from not really having to worry about anything, and like you can do everything on, let's say, a PS4 or PC, and then all of a sudden, yeah, that's not going to happen on Vita. You have to accommodate for it, and you have to find a way to basically get the same effects, but at a much reduced cost.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on to the next question, which is now is marketing related.
Yeah,
We know that you've worked. We know that you've
yeah.
worked on Gang Beasts, and we all know that Gang Beasts came out to be like a big success for what it
Mhm.
is, and many developers say that when you've worked on either indie developers or AAA developers, they say that if you worked on a successful project, you kind of have like the experience and the knowledge to do some things better from there on, even if you work
Yeah.
on your own thing. So I would love to hear from you, like, how did that affect you when it came to developing Sue? Did you have like some extra advantage when it came to that?
Some from like previous projects or looking at other like projects we've worked on or like collaborated with. I suppose for us on a marketing point of view, it's like using like Gang Beasts, like your example, would be community engagement. Just seeing like you can create your own community because of social media, Facebook, Twitter. You can have that direct point of contact, and then events became like very important, and it like you'll be surprised at like how many sales can transfer from events, and like it might not be a big thing, but like you can generate so much word of mouth from an event, or like, and it works so well. And we started running competitions when we go to trade shows now. So the time trial element you see in the game, like we'll set a time at an event, and like generally if you beat it, you'll get the t-shirt. So the Storm t-shirt that I'm wearing now, you would usually that
That
would
is
be the
cool.
prize. And we even followed that up post launch as well. So we started doing a lot of community engagement. So we launched in different regions, we launched like a time trial challenge throughout a community. So whoever was at the top of the leaderboard for a set level, within that time window, would win like a kind of a goodie bag bundle, which would like consist of maybe like a t-shirt, some added like bonuses that we would have as well.
That is pretty
Um,
cool.
and then on top of that, it's just like you start to understand from previous projects like the power of stuff like Twitch and getting Twitch streamers to play your
Yeah.
game, getting it on YouTube, and just assessing like how much reach that can extend for you as well. Just making sure you can get the keys in the hands of the right people and etc. and follow up and keep that engagement going as well. But I would also say, yeah, like the biggest one or the biggest takeaway that I think you can take onto any project you do is definitely community engagement, and how you choose to engage with the community will depend on the type of game you work on as well.
Yeah. So how does since you mentioned community quite a few times, how is the community actually, important to a game that is actually a single player game? Because many people actually say that communities are very important to multiplayer games, but
So,
and really affected by them. So how does it
yeah.
affect a single player game?
So with Shoe, it's definitely just the leaderboard. It's mainly the leaderboard component to it. And what I've noticed recently, even in particular like this week, is the achievements in the game. So especially on PS4, like people who are like can reach like will reach out and say, all right, finish you, great game. Now it's time to do that platinum trophy hunt.
Yeah.
Or you'll see them posting a time and they're trying to achieve the top of the leaderboard. And if they know that a dev time is set on a level and they beat a dev time, they'll tweet directly at us and like kind of trying to raise the competition. But we do the exact same. Like we started that with doing it at events, and then after the game launched, we started pushing it and saying, "Can you beat this time?" Which the time we set to beat will be a developer time, and it kind of puts us in competition with the community when we have time. I always think they like that as well, and that was something we learned from doing events. Is we like I'd see groups of people who had already won the t-shirt and they are literally coming back to beat the time again and again for bragging rights between the friends, and it's insane, but it's just like it's really nice to see people come back and get that engrossed in the game.
That is pretty cool. I mean, you have people dedicated to actually,
Yeah,
getting better at the game and like getting the game out there. Like
yeah.
it's actually more exposure for you, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
but it's really nice to watch, and I mean the competition you see that go down between like say a group of three friends, and it's like EGX we did at the end of September. There was like three friends that kept coming back every day, and they were just literally just trying to beat each other's time. I was like, the game comes out next week, guys. So, come on. And they
You
like
can play next week. You can wait.
yeah, but then the follow up though, like the aftermath of that was on Twitter and stuff. Obviously, they like kind of like had the company page, and I saw the competition still going like between them, but in different levels of the game. Now they were competing on the actual leaderboards and kind of trying to still one up each other, which was nice to see. And it was just nice to see them continue that outside of the event. So we knew it wasn't just like a symptom of being at an event. It was
Yeah.
possible to maintain that outside in the actual launch of the game as well.
Which is pretty important, I guess.
Yeah, you want to maintain it. You don't want it to just fall off after you've like had
Oh,
that event, because it's a very specific scenario.
we got a question. As a speedrunner myself, I would like to ask if you had speedrunners in mind while making it, because it seems like a game that I would enjoy speedrunning.
So when we decided to add the time trials in, the flow of the game, and like I said, if you chain everything together and you hit all your jumps right, you get a sense of momentum.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like in the game, within the levels, there are areas where there are shortcuts that you can shave off seconds, and it can be something simple. It can be an actual shortcut where you can find a secret passageway through something, or it can be as simple as skipping a glide and dropping off an edge and catching yourself. So it's kind of like a skill shot, and that will shave off seconds. So those are the kind of speed runner elements we started incorporating into levels. We started to look at segments you would traverse normally in the game, but also making sure there was a way for someone to discover that would be a speedrunning way, which might save you 2 to 3 seconds, but to cross an entire area.
Okay. So basically, you're kind of confusing me because when I play a game, I try to like enjoy it as much as I can.
Hmm.
And I did notice how nicely the game flows, and I did imagine
Yeah,
that there's a lot of speed running because so the
yeah.
time trial and everything. But I figured that you were like more about like targeting the people that like, want like a casual platformer. But now you're telling me all about this time trial and whatnot.
Yeah, so the way we balanced that out was the first time you play through the game, you can play like the casual platformer and you can hunt out all the collectibles, you can explore, you can find the mule pieces, and the time trial will only ever become available once you've completed a level at least once. So it doesn't become that speedrunner or that really competitive edge to it where until you've actually finished at least your level. So you could go through the entire game if you just keep continuing level by level, you'll complete the game before you possibly even discover that the time trials become available. So you'll still
Okay.
have that casual side to it as well. But once you've did the level once and you've had your casual exploration, you can go back and there will now be an egg timer that appears at the beginning of each level, and it's still your choice to pick it up. So if you don't want to do the time trial and you just want to have that casual experience of finding collectibles and playing through the level, then you can still skip it by jumping over it.
Okay. So
So it kind of
it is
blends
still
the
the casual game that I
yeah,
wanted it to
yeah,
be.
that you wanted it. So it's kind of like two games in one with that aspect, but the leaderboards are what add the competitive edge to it.
No, I mean it's a huge plus. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
Don't take it like that. It's like it's a huge plus because it's a platformer, and
yeah,
there will of course be people that want to speedrun it.
hmm
But at the same time, if you actually support it as a developer yourself for the speedrunners, it makes it like 10 times better. It's
yeah,
gonna make like a competitive environment, as you say, with the leaderboards and
yeah,
everything, which is
yeah.
awesome.
The speedrunner aspect came later, so the casual aspect of it was there first. That's definitely like one thing that we always had in mind, and then we were kind of viewing it as how can we get the hybrid of both without it becoming too brutal, and we kind of think we got that balance right. I know some sections can be quite hard, but the kind of checkpoint system's meant to be there to allow for that and kind of make you feel like you're learning as you go as
Yeah,
well.
you're safe, you know.
Yeah,
As you,
you have checkpoints.
I don't know if you're watching the video, but the video that we're watching from my past playthrough is actually I'm kind of a completionist and I miss a few butterflies, so I go back and die so that I can go back and
So
actually,
you can, but that's a good thing about having like every checkpoint will reset your lives to full. It's
yeah,
like we know like there are people who will want every single butterfly,
yeah,
despite the butterfly stat or grade is based a medal. The medal system is actually based on a threshold, so you'll probably only need let's say like 90% to get the gold, but you can
yeah.
still get them all.
Which I was still pissed because it said like at some levels it said like I was missing like six. It's like
Yeah,
oh come on
and you were
really? I
like,
mean,
and you're kind of like, where is it?
there was yeah. I mean, how did I miss it? I died 1,000 times for it. So anyway, moving on to the cool questions. No, the marketing questions, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things to say about marketing when it comes to indie games, and I more or less want your opinion on it rather than just what you did for Sue. But let's start with how Sue handled marketing. How would you say that Sue managed to handle marketing well in order to get to the point that it is now? Because coming from us, like I'll tell you myself, because we do indies press,
Yeah.
and we talk with a lot of companies, and especially in Europe,
Yeah.
Sue had a really big name. Like
Okay.
since last year at least, we
Hmm.
heard about it a lot, and I was really expecting it. You kind of tend to forget like what indie games are coming out because there are so many. But
Yeah.
when it came out, it was immediately, people knew what Sue was and what game it was. It
Yeah.
was. So, how did you manage to actually make that happen?
So it kind of, I suppose it comes down to when you in development and you reach a point where yes, you've still got the game to finish, but let's say you've got a world finished, you have a level, therefore you have a demo, and that's kind of when you will start going to trade shows. And we basically at Coatsink try to go to as many trade shows as we can for one of two reasons. It's promotion for the game, but especially during development, it gives us feedback we can take into it. And then events, you start building word of mouth through that. And then it became just going through the social media channels. And we did like mini dev blogs as well, which we all did ourselves with our like community manager. And then it got to about the middle of this year, and we did hire an internal PR guy, and he kind of like came up with the strategy of we're going to hit like X, Y, and Z. We're going to do press boxes. We're going to really push it at events. We're going to really push the time trial element, the speedrun element, and that really helped us push the game internally as indie developers. But we'd already established the name previously the year before, just by having it in people's minds from showing it at trade shows, and
Yeah.
having stuff like a PlayStation blog post obviously helps. We did release it on PS4 and are still actively working on bringing it to Vita, and PlayStation gave us a little bit of support in that aspect by giving us the blog post, and then we got in touch with like different PlayStation communities, because obviously you've got PlayStation Europe, you've even got like PlayStation community pages in Russia and stuff like that as well. And there's PlayStation US, so that was two
So you
blog posts
managed
we
to
hit
access like
immediately.
lots of different geographical areas as well because of
Yeah,
that.
that was kind of an important one. I think that's kind of what helped spread the name more as well.
Yeah, okay. So it was like you'd say like the events were the most important part of that.
From my point of view, I'd say yes, and then it was like the constant like engagement afterwards, like through social media, just making sure we kept those channels open and just continually promoting the game.
Okay. So marketing wise,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on the current indies market? Like, it's a very open question, I know, but
Yeah, it's. I think everyone views it like every indie deals with it differently. It's like a lot of people will put a lot of money into it, and it's like once again, if you go to trade shows or you go to events, you can always tell by like how much money they put into the booth. It's like some people will
yeah,
self-assemble it with like no artwork. Some people will like get a massive. The standard is normally a banner printed on the thing with a little bit of merchandise going around, and merchandise kind of does help as well. Like we had the T-shirts, so it's like whenever we went to a trade show, like it engages people to like win the T-shirt, and then
yeah,
obviously if they wear it after the fact, it's like, oh, where did you get that from? And then that starts to build the name,
yeah.
and it just all kind of flows out from each other.
How come you weren't at the Gamescom 2016, by the way?
Um, I, we did go to Gamescom 2016, but we didn't have a presence on the show floor.
Oh,
It
okay.
was mainly just business meetings and stuff that we were out there for at the time. So
Okay, okay. Because I didn't catch you go at the time.
yeah,
We
we
had a
weren't
lot of meetings with people, but it was the time that we opened up Hyperlight Up in that summer.
right.
So we were really busy with actually trying to get as much as coverage as we can from Gamescom for the
Yeah.
indies, not for us.
Hmm.
So it was kind of hard to set up meetings and all that. We tried to get everything from the Indie Arena booth, for example. We covered all
Yeah.
of the games there. So
Yeah, we didn't exhibit this year. We were just there doing the kind of like business side of it, with similar to yourself. Like you were setting up Hyperlight at this point, so it was just get as much content and connections as
okay,
possible, I guess.
yeah, okay. So well, somebody said you had a large group of developers for the project. John already told us that it was about 6 developers at the start, right?
I'd say like at a high, it probably reached 10, but that was like the most. At the start, it was like 4 to 6 of us,
Okay.
like just developing it out. But yeah, consistently, we probably maintained about like 6 full time at
Okay.
any one time during development.
So there you go. So last question for me.
Yep.
What would you say is next for the studio? Like, what is the future from here on?
So the future on here on like part of Coatsink will continue to support you post launch. That's like community engagement, patches for the PC
Yeah,
version.
which is very important, of course. I mean,
Exactly. We're not just going to like let it fizzle out. We're not going to leave it behind. We are still doing the Vita version, which is coming along quite nicely. And we've also we're currently working on some additional levels for the shoe.
okay,
External to that, we have some other internal projects, but basically they're very early in development, and we'll hopefully be able to share more with you guys soon. So.
okay, that's awesome. So can we expect Sue number 2 at some point, maybe?
I'm not going to say never, but it's not on the cards right now.
Okay, so probably some other project or something. Kind of
That'll
thinking
be,
about it.
it's in the back of people's minds. I mean, we've just felt like the thing is, it's like we released the game and then started doing extra levels for it, so it was kind of like, and it didn't stop for us really.
Okay,
Whereas for everyone else out there, it's kind of like, oh, they've
kind of
released it, they've
like a
stopped for a
living
little bit.
project kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been nice though. It was nice to kind of do some fresh levels, like kind of thing, which was a change. So.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I like to say that, like, when I'm interviewing developers, you kind of pressure them to, like, give you information, like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we do have something in the back of our heads, like, we're kind of thinking about Sue number 2. So you never know.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that's pretty much my questions. I mean, I'm very happy with what I learned from you about Sue. I feel like I have a more complete image now. It always comes down to, like, when I'm interviewing somebody, if I about their product in specific, and talking
Yeah.
about games even more. At Hyperlight Up, we see them more like as art because we've played a
Yeah.
bunch of games and we know the difference between like AAA and indie games.
Yeah.
So it's more like a passion project for indie developers, you would say.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's like
Yeah,
you kind of care. Like I'm not saying AAA developers don't like care, but it's like you work on this, and it does become like your heart and soul, and it's purely
yeah,
because you're not part of like everyone's working on just about every aspect of the game. Whereas at a bigger studio, there'll be a group of people work on one aspect, a group of people work on another. But you'll in a smaller company, you will probably touch base on all of it. So it kind of becomes a part of you in a very weird way.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's very important for me. Like as soon as the interview is finished, to actually be able to understand like the
Yeah.
product itself.
Hmm.
Because if you didn't, then you're probably missing something. So
Yeah.
unless there's something else you'd like to add.
Um, it not really. Beta version should be available early next year. There will be some additional levels soon, and you can currently pick it up on PSN and Steam.
Okay, so are the additional levels going to be DLC or just updates?
There'll be basically a free update.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for joining us, John.
No
It
worries.
was great having you here. Thank you for answering all of our questions, even if they were, a bit depressing. But
No, they're all fine.
for everyone else, you can expect to see me streaming Sue again soon because that was cool. I rhymed there a bit.
Yeah.
I'll be finishing Sue on stream at some point, and we'll probably have a few of our stream partners playing it as well if you're in the US or something. If you're in a different time zone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time, guys. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.